His whole thing was about whiteness. That was his key uniting core throughout his career, whiteness, of making America white again. And then he would cloak it in a Christianity that would be unrecognizable to Christians of real faith. And so now I'm pointing the mirror at you, Hoser. You being a Christian, my friend, my dear friend who I've known for many years, who, we lived together for almost 5 years. You think he was a real Christian? You think the faith he represented was what is contained in the Bible? I mean, to me, the question is like, how can you bring those two things together?
Heard podcast. My name is Jose. I'm so happy for all of you guys to join us. Today I'm joined by my two awesome friends, Carlos and Edgar. How's it going, guys?
Good. He changed the word.
Yeah, I changed the word. Yeah. Well, again, it's so awesome to have this conversation with you guys. It's always a pleasure to sit down with y'all and just talk about anything. And then today we have a very special topic, I think. Yet at the same time, it goes with what we've been talking about the last months and what this podcast focuses on. And that's about a current event that happened recently this week. You guys probably know that on September 10th, 2025, a right-wing conservative activist named Charlie Kirk, he was shot, killed while having one of his events at Utah Valley University. And so it was a very shocking event, shocking situation, because I think it took a lot of people by surprise. But this event, this tragedy, as I feel it, has actually sparked a lot of conversations. A lot of conversations between like what he stood for, what he represented, and not only that, but I think like what do we represent? What do we stand for, right? And so today I kind of wanted to have that conversation, and actually it's a continuation of that conversation, because one of the things that the audience may not know is that all of us, we have a group chat, a group text thread for this podcast, and so the moment it happened, like we engaged in that conversation, and so we didn't want to continue it in a private manner. We kind of wanted to bring it here in this platform. So gentlemen, y'all ready to continue that conversation?
Yep.
All right. So let's start off with who Charlie Kirk was. From what I've learned, or from what I've acquired, Charlie Kirk was a conservative, but also I think one of the things that should be really highlighted is that he was a Trump supporter, a Trump ally, more likely, someone who really embraced Donald Trump's campaign and also everything that he actually enacted, has been enacting this year. He was the co-founder of Turning Point USA, which is a conservative group that I've seen a lot of their content, and it's very heavy. They're very big online, and they're trying to bring that right-wing point of view, not only to the center stage, but also to kind of bring out their perspectives and actually kind of lift up conservative youth. And so I don't know if you guys have seen like some of his past events, but there's a lot of youth that kind of come together in these events.
So yeah, I just wanted to comment that he is attributed to have swung the election very favorably towards Donald Trump by galvanizing what you're mentioning, the youth, particularly at college universities.
Yep.
His organization you just mentioned, founded that when he was 18. This was 2012. And at that point, his politics were more in line with the Tea Party type of Republican.
Okay.
And so his politics they've also morphed with the times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I know, Edgar has a hard stop, so I kind of want to get right to it, right? People can look up who Charlie Kirk was on their own time, his early life or whatever. But, I'm really interested in, two things. We mentioned that Edgar was going to share some videos and your views on him, Hoser. So How do we do this?
Well, let's start off, but by starting with this question: what do we think about Charlie Kirk? Um,
Why
if you
don't you go
want,
first?
I'll go first. Okay, so I haven't been following him per se for the last year or so. But the thing is, in a lot of the podcasts that I've been listening to, that I listen to, he's always been a guest. And I've always found him as a very, I mean, controversial, I think is very minimal. And he had some ideas that are very, um, very, very hard to digest. And I think very hateful. However, I may say, and I'm going to say here, like I disagreed with about 80 to 85% of his opinions, but I did agree with some of his things, especially with when it comes to faith. I really agreed with how he expressed his faith and how he believed that those values that Christianity actually teaches should be implemented within our country. When this shooting happened, it really impacted me personally. It really shocked me because it was kind of like one of those, just like a celebrity that I just heard like 2 weeks ago, or someone that I constantly, like, he shows up in a lot of my podcastings. Like, it was just like, oh wow, what the heck, what happened to him? And I think the biggest shock for me out of all was that as controversial and as very insensitive as a lot of his ideas were, it sucks that if someone doesn't agree with them, then you kind of put a mark on your head. And I think that's the thing what shocked me. And the first thing that shocked me, I was like, oh wow, I can't go out out in the streets and talk about my point of view about something because I risk someone coming at me to the point of death. And that shocked me. Like, that's how I felt right off the bat. I did mention to you guys that I did admire that guy. Admire in the sense that he was not afraid, or he was very outspoken about what he thought, whether wrong, whether right. Like, he was very outspoken. It honestly reminded me of, I personally, one of the people I admire a lot is you, Carlos, because you, since I met you, like, you've been clear about where you stand about things. You've been outspoken. And if we were in the street and someone were to say like, dude, we should keep on supporting, I don't know, Bank of America or something like that, you would stop and say, this is what I think, and you wouldn't shy off about expressing your opinion. I think in the same way, but from the other side, that's how I saw him. Like, he was not afraid to go to go out and express his right wing views.
He would
And
go out to like campuses and debate people.
he would go out there and debate him. His debates are hard to kind of like see, and I think it's two reasons why it's very hard to see those. Is one of them, it's because uh you I feel bad because a lot of these college students are starting to learn these new concepts, these new ideas, and so they're still wrestling with all that. And he kind of comes in and puts them down. Or used to put them down. And I was like, hey, dude, like, relax, like, teach him in a nice, like, loving way. And then the second thing that I didn't like when he did those things is that sometimes he kind of laughed at them, like, he kind of mocked them in a certain way. He had like this little weird smirk, and that, me personally, I didn't like. However, there were some debates where he was a little bit more loving, I guess, if you want to speak to it.
I just want to respond to you real quick and, latch on to some points you made that I'll quickly summarize by saying that I don't think he was a good person. I don't think he was a good person, and I don't think he was a good Christian. I think this guy was openly racist, that he was an opponent of free speech, and I'd like to think of myself as a supporter of free speech. So I very much encourage my adversaries politically to speak their mind. He wasn't like that. He was calling for the deportation of Mehdi Hassan, who's a journalist I really respect. He's a brown journalist, British descent, naturalized American citizen. He was also calling for the deportation of Mahmoud Khalil, which we've discussed here as an organizer of the Palestine support movements that emerged at Columbia University. So some people are trying to whitewash his death as, oh, he was a supporter of free speech and he was out there debating. No, no, no. This guy was very hateful and very anti-free speech. And now it's interesting for me to try to reconcile this with the fact that you admired or respected his theology, his Christianity, because those two things are incongruent. You can't be racist, you can't be xenophobic, you can't call for public executions of your enemies and encourage children to watch that while being a good Christian, in my opinion. And so I'll read kind of an excerpt of someone who studied a lot of political violence. His name is Jeff Charlotte. He's a journalist, he's an author, a professor of English and creative writing at Dartmouth. So this is some academic who thinks and writes and is familiar with who Charlie Kirk was. He says that Charlie Kirk, quote, would engage in openly racist talk, saying that Black women didn't have the mental processing power to hold a position of responsibility, and that if he saw one in such a place, he would think that she'd stole that job. His whole thing was about whiteness. That was his key uniting core throughout his career, whiteness, of making America white again. And then he would cloak it in a Christianity that would be unrecognizable to Christians of real faith. And so now I'm pointing the mirror at you, Hoser. You being a Christian, my friend, my dear friend who I've known for many years, who, we lived together for almost 5 years. You think he was a real Christian? You think the faith he represented was what is contained in the Bible? I mean, to me, the question is like, how can you bring those two things together? Openly vile, hateful, racist person calling for the deportations of American citizen, anti-free speech individual, but then say that his faith was grounded. The faith of someone who would call for the public execution of his enemies and who wanted children to see that and take a holy experience from it. His words, not mine. And so the final point I want to make is that by us criticizing Charlie Kirk, we're not celebrating his death.
Yeah, that's very important. Continue, sorry.
Yeah, and we shouldn't whitewash his death. We should go based on the records of his words that he said. And, the points that I brought up now responding to you, I think, based on what we started talking in the thread, are for you to reconcile with. Is that what you think a good Christian is?
So before I go into that, I kind of want to touch about, there's two different things, his death and what he spoke and what he said, right? I think, let's talk a little bit about the death. Whoever it is, whether Charlie Kirk or not, that is a very graphic way to die. Publicly, it's all over the internet, and it's shocking.
Yeah, so there's a video of him calling for public executions, and he's very gleeful about it, like very, very proud of this idea. And then he's debating it on his podcast that they should be televised, and that this would work as a deterrent so that other people don't commit crimes. And so the theme of the podcast is they're talking about at what age should they make kids watch this, and him and his buddies land on 12. That at 12 years old, they believe that kids should be watching televised public executions. And so, Jose, you were saying that it's a very graphic way to die, but I mean, to be honest, it sounds like he would have been actually supportive of what happened. And so, I do want.
So are you saying that how he died and how it's getting published is how he wanted to go?
I think so. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, and there's other videos of him saying, that empathy is like a made up word, and we shouldn't have empathy with each other.
Right. Yeah, and just to be clear, I don't agree with those things.
And then there's one more video where he says that in order to defend the Second Amendment, there has to be collateral damage, that there are going to be deaths, and that he is okay with it. And so, if you take all these things together, I think this death is something that he would be okay with, something he would support, and this is probably the way he would want to go out.
No, he would want to go out being a catalyst for a civil war.
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, it kind of is. If you hear the rhetoric that Trump is saying versus some of the other politicians. Some of the other politicians are calling for like, oh my God, this is like too much, like we're getting too much into political violence. Trump, on the other hand, is saying revenge, like we need to punish the left. And so, and he's the president, right? He's supposed to calm us down, but he's like fucking just throwing more fuel into the flame. And yeah, and then Charlie Kirk's wife has taken the mantle of like saying, she's gonna carry on the torch and that his message is not gonna die. And regarding his death, I do want to say that I don't think I disagree with it. Like we said in the beginning, we're not gonna celebrate it. Um, but I think silencing your critics is actually detrimental to American democracy. Today is Charlie Kirk. Before it could be left wing activists
Yeah.
that get silenced, and that's just not the way that America should function. So before him, there was I think a period of time where there weren't that many high profile political assassinations, right? Like in the
Wrong,
60s.
wrong, wrong. 3 months ago, some Democratic lawmaker whose name I'm looking up right now was executed by some right wingers. I'm trying to look up the names, but it hasn't been 3 months. Here it is, Melissa Hortman. She was the Speaker of the Minnesota House. Was
Mhm.
murdered in her home with her husband less than
Mhm.
3 months ago. So this is
Yeah.
the point I want to make. This is as American as apple pie. Politically motivated violence is a big part of this country's history, which they would like us to forget because we live in the United States of amnesia, right? This country also has a very rich resistance to unchecked power, right? And so with that, like I'll let you guys.
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree with you. It's always been a part of American history, the violent political violence, but that's an indicator that we're not going the right way. When we believe in the system and we believe in American democracy, we're gonna go use our vote to try to change things. And so that's when there's a functioning democracy, when like people believe in the system, they're voting, their vote is their power. However, when we start seeing political violence, that means that the people are kind of like giving up. Like I don't think my vote matters. I think I need to make change another way. I mean, just look at what's going on in Nepal, right? There's like a uprising from their citizens because they just no longer believe in the government. Voting doesn't matter at all, and so they took matters into their own hands and overthrew the government. And so I'm arguing that like, yeah, these political assassinations are not a good thing. They're not a good way to change the system. We should be in a functioning democracy where our vote is our power, and yet we're resorting to violence. So that means that's an indicator that we're not in a good place, and we're losing our democracy. Whether you're
I
left
mean,
or right, today it's right wing, tomorrow it could be a left activist, right?
yeah. So a couple of things really quickly. We're called the bewildered herd because we're precisely that. And we think we live in a democratic society, which is a fallacy. This is something I try to lay out on the pilot episode. We don't live in a democracy. This point has been really nicely illustrated on a video that's circulating on social media. I think it's Christopher Hedges. He's being interviewed by Mark Lamont Hill. Christopher Hedges kind of smirks at the idea of a democracy. He's like, we don't live in a democracy in the United States. This past election was an election between the corporatists, the Democrats, who want to maintain some sort of decorum and appearances that we live in a democracy, and the oligarchs, who want us to live in a full-fledged system in which it's rent-based by the services we consume, right? People of the type of Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Anyway, I think that's really important to emphasize. In my opinion, we don't live in a democracy. We have an illusion that we live in a democracy, and that's what keeps us in this kind of state of tension, which results in these politically motivated assassinations in which people understandably feel that they have to take matters into their own hands. And I think that's one message that I want to hammer across through here. We don't live in a democracy. We don't live in a capitalistic society. This is something we've mentioned before here. We lived in a mixed market economy in which the oligarchs are subsidized by our taxes. If their companies fail, we bail them out. If we can't make rent, us, the regular people, there's a lot of room in the street. So let's let's put that in the mix.
I agree. I actually agree with Edgar. Now, if anyone is a little bit more like very outspoken, if they're not shying off about their beliefs or what they think, like now you risk now you risk your head. I agree. It's not something new. Like, oh my god, this is the first time. No, this has been happening. I think for a while, for a long time, for a long time. I mean, Abraham Lincoln, right? He
Yeah,
got shot.
MLK, Malcolm
Yeah,
X, like
yeah. I
during
mean,
that the 60s, 70s, like
but
the
and I think in response to the democracy, like yeah, like you said, this is not a democracy. Okay, sure, but I think there's a lot of people like Edgar, like who want to fight for that democracy. They want to have that sense of democracy. They want that, right? And so I think someone like Kirk, I think at his heart, I think in the root of it, he wanted to do that, but how he went about it, like it's like no, that's not how you want to do it. I mean, you
well,
said it
I
right.
don't agree with that one, Hoser.
Everyone grows up. Hold on. Wait. Let me tell you. It's like there's a lot of people who wanted to who I'll give you here. Thanos, right? Thanos wanted from Marvel, from the Avengers. He wanted to maintain. He wanted to make the universe a better universe. If he would have told you that, you would have been like, okay. But then how he wanted to do it, but destroying half of the population and the whole universe, then that's like, hey man, relax. That's not
I
how you
mean
do it.
that sounds like Hitler, dude. He wanted to make the world a better place, just in his
But
image.
but everyone does, right? It's the same thing. It's like Carlos is the same thing, right? Carlos wants
No,
or the
man,
communists, right?
this goes back to the heart of his question, which he asked you earlier. How can you be a Christian for some but not for all? Because in what we're saying is Christianity is like love thy neighbor, and that's the part that they forget. It's like
Yeah,
if
but
you
but
look a certain way, welcome to the club. If not, you're gonna go to hell. We're gonna make sure you get out of this country, and we believe that you're gonna go to hell, pretty much. So
right.
those things cannot be congruent, is what Carlos is saying, and that actually I was curious too. It was like
So no,
how
so they can't be congruent, and I am no one to what he did was Christian or what was acceptable by Christ. Hold on.
That's what you
That
started saying.
hold on. Whoa, hold on. Well, let me because at the end of it, he's gonna have to answer to God. For the Bible says, but Lord, like I spoke of your word, I casted out demons, I did all this, and Lord, and then he's gonna say, I didn't know you. That's what the Bible says. However, where I'm getting at is that he did speak out about who Jesus Christ was. Within all his hate commentary, he put it in there. And so it's kind of like, think
so
about it.
okay, Hoser. I mean, so does Donald Trump, right? He says he's Christian. He says he goes to church.
No,
So I
it's
don't.
different. No,
No,
you
dude.
get no, it's
Just
different.
let me finish my point. How can you say hateful things on Friday? He says that black women are moronic. This is his words, dude. Black women are moronic. If there's a pilot that's black, he's gonna question their qualifications. Same for engineers. Public executions. 12-year-old should witness this. Just a bunch of hateful, evil things he says on Friday. But then if you go to church on Sunday and you say I love God, does that absolve you of all that? Or maybe there's like passages in the Bible. See, this is where I'm kind of confused. Like maybe this is more your area. Is there passages in the Bible that says like
Yes,
if
kill,
you are
kill,
white,
kill, kill.
yeah, like kill, kill, kill.
No.
If you're white,
Yeah,
you're in the
kill
club. But
the
if
kill the
you're
Amalek.
Muslim, well, hold on. Like if
Yeah.
you're Muslim, you're gonna go to hell. If you look like this, you're gonna go to hell. If you're gay, you're gonna go to hell. Because I thought Jesus was supposed to be this like empathetic, loving guy that he's like the
Radical.
OG DEI guy.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm confused.
No, you know what I think it is? I think the question I'm interested in is if you can be honest, Hoser, about the appeal he had over you. And I think if you can be honest about that appeal that you felt for him, it's totally fine, dude. Like I
He
think
he said it
this
already.
podcast. I mean, it's still not clear to me because right now he just took it
He
back.
he was a
He's like,
champion for dude. He was a champion for Jesus. Like he loved Jesus. He was trying to spread Christianity.
okay. So
So
then that puts into question Hoser's theology for me because like the quote I read, I think is pretty good. He was a racist, evil, anti-free speech dude. And then he cloaked it in a Christianity that was unrecognizable to Christians of real faith. And so, like what I said, like, okay, Hoser, here's a mirror. Like, how?
So let me just have like something clear. Are you struggling with the idea of how can you live something when you preach something else, right? Is that kind of where you're going at?
No. I'll be very direct. I'm questioning your theology. I'm questioning how in your
why my
theology can
theology?
you, because you admired that this guy was a champion for Christ. And the way he was a champion for Christ. You're saying you're not cool with that. You're saying you're not cool with the things he said, but at the end of the day, he was a champion for Jesus. But he represents essentially everything that we are not here, right? Here, we're trying to reach some understanding. We're having a civilized conversation. We believe in free speech. But now I'm questioning your religion, dude. I'm saying, like, how in your religion can you latch on to this guy being a champion of Christ, given that he represented what he represented, which we've already discussed before? That was appealing to you somehow. And that's what I'm interested in. And what I'm speculating that we've shared on the thread is that it's the algorithm. It's those podcasts that you mentioned earlier that had him on and presented him as someone who was worthwhile listening to, who could have some interesting opinions, maybe a lot of them grotesque. But at the end of the day, he was a champion for Christ. And that's the takeaway you left with. And so my questions are like very general. Is like how, why, how do you reconcile those things? And, like, is your theology okay with someone like that? Like, can someone like that be a pastor at your church?
You made me think about the algorithm. And I'm like, I've never thought about it like that, in that sense that maybe I was getting filtered because a lot of my content is Christian content, right? So I was just getting filtered his content that aligned with the content I already listened to. So it may be that I'm thinking he's aligned with my biblical views, right?
I was
All right.
trying to find videos of him saying like
Good
positive
things.
things. Yeah, good things. Because I already knew where Hoser was gonna go. He's like, I know this guy's Christianity. He's gonna like that. He's spreading the word of Jesus. So I was trying to find videos of him saying positive things, even if it's like about religion, right? Like, but I couldn't find anything like nothing positive, man. Other than like he says, I love Jesus. But my question to Hoser was like, can I just wear the shirt, like be on the team with the jersey, but not actually like practice the teachings of Christianity?
No. Let's start with this. Right now, a lot of the Christian, I don't know if you guys have been seeing this word, but they've been throwing the word martyr. He's been a martyr for the faith. That's what people are saying.
Okay, what faith?
The Christian faith.
White nationalist Christians? Yes, I'd agree with that statement. White nationalist Christians, he's definitely a martyr for them. So let's be very clear on who he's a martyr for.
I don't think that's correct, right?
What part of that statement?
That he's a martyr overall. Well, that he's a martyr for a white nationalist, maybe. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, because I think there is a part of the church where it's very Baptist, is very like they want to keep it white, they want to keep it their way. I think it's what's it called, Southern Baptist. I don't remember. Where my argument lays is that this guy was not afraid to say, I love Jesus, and I believe in Jesus. Jesus saved my life. He transformed my life, and everyone should know Jesus. I agree with him in that. Hold on. I think that if you say, well, how can you be a Christian if you spread all these hateful things? Yes, true. But at the same time, no Christian out there is also that clean of certain comments. In other words, in God's eyes, me insulting like Edgar or Carlos over a view or something like that is in God's eyes, it is as sinful as Charlie Kirk saying these things about, say, black people. However, the beauty of Christ is that he knows we fail. That's why he took our punishment for all of our failures. And so how can they be congruent? They can't in action, Like if you stick by the law, like he also always talked about the Ten Commandments. No, you can't. Like he's failing. But the grace of God through Jesus Christ is what it's kind of like. I can't argue against that
Yeah,
because I would need that too,
you know what it is,
and
Carlos?
that's how I
It's
can come into a resolution in a way in my heart about that.
I think
Does that make
I
sense?
think I was trying to figure it out too, and I think Carlos, I think you're right, dude. I think it's the algorithm, man. Cause I was actually kind of surprised by like a lot of people in my friends group posted like, I stand with Charlie, and like I was like, what the heck? How can you like this guy? I was shocked at the people that supported him. But I think thinking about it and what Hoser just said is an a la carte pick and choose what they say. Actually, you don't even pick the algorithm picks it for you and provides it into your feed. So I can just imagine like Hoser's feed as well as like some of these people that were shocked was Charlie talking about God and how it would give him inspiration and purpose and all the stuff we talked about in the other episode, and probably nothing about like talking about black women or nothing like that. Like just all Jesus, love for Jesus. And then you and me, Carlos, because of our searches, our algorithm shows us only clips of him saying black women are moronic. He believes in televised capital punishment, like all the negative stuff. And so I think we just have distorted views, dude. Like to be honest, I think Hoser sees is like really,
Eh,
really good
eh,
guy in
no,
his feed, and then you and me. No,
whoa.
well, I
Don't get it
okay, not
twisted.
Hoser, but just in general, like the people that follow him, they probably only see like good videos of him talking about Jesus, and I think it's skewed.
No, I mean, I think he is a martyr for white Christian nationals who are aching to point a gun at people who look like us, who want to make America white again. The great is a filler for white. Okay? That's my response. And then going back to the algorithm, I completely agree, which is something I alluded to earlier in our thread. I think Hoser's algorithm is conservative, Christian, white, and I'll even throw in the nationalist in there. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Hoser, but
No, I
that's
think it's wrong.
what I'm suspecting. I could talk about my algorithm. My algorithm thinks I'm a lone wolf and thinks that I'm right wing. And so I kind of laugh at it, right? I'm like, these fuckers are showing me videos of Jordan Peterson, the Canadian dude, of Joe Rogan. They never showed me Charlie Kirk, but I wouldn't be surprised if they had. So that's who the algorithm thinks I am.
Hey,
Which,
didn't you have that quote? You should say, dude, that's a badass quote. The I swing, what is it? I swing
oh
so
yeah,
far left.
yeah, I my political views are so far to the left that I end up agreeing with some people on the right. Yeah, and
And actually, like, when you said it, Carlos, I was like, well, maybe that's true because last night, like, I was kind of looking more about him, and he did say he's like, we need to follow the Ten Commandments. I'm like, okay, but not. I'm like, but the way he kind of said it, it was kind of like, oh, this is the only thing we need to do. I'm like, relax, dude. We can't do that. Like, human nature won't allow us to do that. Have you read that? I think, like, honestly, for me, please don't get it twisted. Like I didn't like what this guy spoke. Like he wasn't nice. He wasn't nice to a lot of people. I would even say like white people. Like he wasn't even nice. It was just kind of like, if you don't fall in line with how I'm thinking, then you're wrong. You know, he wasn't nice, and it was hard to kind of like listen to him sometimes. I'm like, like I tried to, and honestly, I couldn't. Like I couldn't. Like it's just because it's not right. Where my thing, where
I mean,
I
I want to quip. I really commend you for trying to listen to someone like that, given the very amount of precious time that we have. That you would try
yeah.
to sit through and watch or listen to what this guy had to say. To me, Hoser, I go back to what I said in the thread, is a little concerning.
Well, why
Not a
wouldn't
little.
you
Whoa,
listen?
wait,
Why,
whoa,
why
hold on,
wouldn't you
dude.
listen to the other side though?
Yeah, yeah, I agree with Hoser on that one. It's like it's important to listen to.
If you're struggling listening to what someone is saying because it's so vile, hateful, and coming from a place of arrogance and hate, I mean, when are you going to hit the pause and move on to something else? I mean, I've listened to Tucker Carlson. And I've agreed with some of points that he's made. He's said, for example, that we don't need to be arming Ukraine. We don't need to be meddling on what Russia is doing over there in Ukraine. We don't need to go start another forever war in the Middle East. And I agree with all those points that Tucker Carlson says. But then there's a whole bunch of other things that I don't agree with. Right?
Yeah,
Great.
same with Charlie Kirk.
Huh.
I think it's important that people know that, just because you're right wing, left wing, conservative, liberal, doesn't mean you agree with like everything, dude. Like that's an important thing that we need to make distinctions, is that just because you have that label doesn't mean you agree with every single thing that like a liberal would agree with. So for example, one of the things that Charlie said, he was a very adamant protector of the Second Amendment, which I agree with, man. I think we should have the right to bear arms, and it is for completely different reasons than like what probably he's thinking. But if we need to rebel against our government, yeah, I mean, I think we should have, and I think that's why they put that Second Amendment in there, is like for ordinary citizens to rebel against our government.
So let me ask you.
And so,
You guys have the
just
same.
going back to
Okay.
what Hoser said, it's important to see the other side so that people know that we there is middle ground where we can agree, and then hopefully that brings us closer to some kind of unity within the country.
You guys have spoken that you guys like agree with some points, right? Then how do you guys like that's kind of what I'm trying to tell you guys, like with this guy, like with regards to faith and how he thought about Jesus. I'm not telling you that how he acted was Jesus like. That's not what I'm saying. Nor am I telling you that what he's doing is Christian like. Honestly,
I get you, Hoser, because I'm thinking like one of my favorite sports athletes is Mayweather, dude. Oh my god, he's so good at what he does. But man, he's done some like terrible things, right? So
yeah,
how do I like
eh,
if I just look at the boxing side, he's like, damn, this guy's
right.
I wish I could be like him, But then if I include the whole package, is like this guy's not a good
Exactly.
person.
And that's what I'm saying. And that's been my point all along. Like I like that point, but I don't like everything else. And so where you guys kind of threw it back at me is like, well, how can you say that he was Christian yet he was acting like that? I'm like, all I'm telling you is that I agree with that point. I'm not like he called himself Christian, but I'm not in a position to say, oh, he really followed Christ the way he had said supposed to do. No, because when he gets to heaven, he's gonna have to resolve that. It's like me. I can tell you I'm Christian, but I can be living in a certain way. But God is gonna be the one who judges me at the end, and I'm gonna be like, oh, hey, remember I did this, and he can say like, oh, sure, come in, or be like, hey, I don't know you, dude. You didn't know me. I didn't know you. So that's not up to me. And I think everyone falls like that. Like everyone has a lot of thoughts. Like for example, like I believe in the algorithm argument that Carlos made. I agree with that. I'm like, yeah, maybe that's true. I agree with that. But he has mentioned in past podcasts, like sometimes with these oligarchs, I think like I wouldn't be opposed with also unaliving them.
Charlie Kirk said that?
No, Carlos did.
I did.
Yeah.
And I really stand by it. So
you see what I'm saying? Like, and so it comes to a
Whoa,
point of,
yeah, but I'm not saying that children should see that and that it should be
no,
televised.
no. You know what I'm
This
saying?
podcast, I'm glad we had it because it made it crystal clear how somebody could support Trump, Charlie Kirk, Hitler. Like I see it now. It's like, damn, it's the way it's presented, and it probably goes back to what Carlos is, media. What is it? The five filters of the media, and the
Huh?
way like
Yeah.
something is put in front of you. It's like, I mean, yeah, my feed versus somebody else's, like that guy's an angel in that guy's feed. He's like for sure gonna go to heaven.
And actually, right now, I personally believe that within the Christian church, one of the things is that there's a lot of like churches are becoming very political. I know you may say like they've always been political, but I think when a church becomes very political, starts talking about a nationalist type of identity, and then or anti-racist or something like that, you're starting to move away from the actual point of what the church is about, which is Jesus Christ.
I think Jesus Christ was very political. I think when he kicked out those people doing business in the church, I think is a overt act of being political and showing where he stands for. I think
I think he was very radical for the time.
Exactly.
Like,
so
super leftist.
you can't distinguish the figure that I've heard Jesus Christ was from politics and how that relates to what is going on today, right? And it goes back to the algorithm of what people pick and choose to take away from.
I
And
disagree.
there's something else I wanted to mention. Like one of the founding fathers of the US enterprise was Thomas Jefferson. And you could double check me, but I'm pretty sure I'm paraphrasing something he said. He said something along the lines that our democracy needed to be renewed with the blood of our citizenry every so often. That for democracy to function, there needed to be some type of social strife, of blood being shed. Because if that didn't happen, you're going to have power shift too hard in the hands of some and not in others. That's the United States. That's the reality of what this country is. It's violence, it's theft, it's dispossession, it's accumulation by a few at the expense of the many. It's subjugation at home and conquest abroad. That's what an empire is. That's what we are. And we're citizens of that empire. And that empire has reached its limit in global power and is currently in the stage in where it's going downhill.
Yeah, I agree that that is America, but when you see those like rise in violence, political violence, and that's a signal we're going downhill, like you said. And in my opinion, that's not a good thing. Like this shooting of Charlie Kirk is not a good thing. It's just an indicator of where this country is going. And then one more point I wanted to make was the shooter, the suspected shooter. So the governor of Utah, when they found out who it was, he said he was disappointed because he was praying to God that he would not be, quote unquote, one of us, that it would be somebody from out of the state, out of the country, meaning he didn't want somebody to look like them, right? They wanted to like blame this on like immigrants or something like that. Yeah, like us. And that he was very, very disappointed. And I thought it was funny that he was like praying to God that it was not one of like,
So
See,
going back to that whole Christian thing, right? The whole white nationalist Christian thing of like what you mentioned earlier, Edgar. Like Christians are people who look like us, white, who believe what we believe and who love this country, right?
and see that statement right there. That I will tell you, like, whoa, that's not Christian like. But then again, it's Utah, so it's Mormon, so it's not really Christian. So
And
that's
then another point
it's
I
a
wanted
Mormon
to make
country.
is the majority of the political violence that occurs in the United States is done by white males, particularly right-winger white males, not the left, not what you would suspect if you were listening to Donald Trump is the radical left, right? Statistically, and I think this has even been recognized by the FBI, the most significant threat to national stability from inside is terrorist, right-wing, white groups composed of males who are really radicalized and want to bring the system down. And they really tried hard in January 6th. And bringing it
Mm-hmm.
back to Charlie, he was kind of proud of being like a spark, an ignition for that, for January 6th. And so, you know, we, yeah, we can criticize him all he want. That doesn't mean that we celebrate his death. You know, he has a kid, he has a
They got
wife.
two kids, yeah.
We have empathy, unlike him apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, sometimes the chickens come home to roost.
I did want to bring up two comments. One comment that I heard recently was that someone told me, he's like, "Huh, all of that, like he defended all of that for what? Now he left his family alone." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And then someone told me, "Yeah, like think about it. Like he stood for a left or a right or whatever position, and now he's gone, and now he left his family without a dad." And I wanted to ask you guys, like, if we think about like MLK, Malcolm X, like they had families too, and they were outspoken about their cause, yet it put a blank on them. So my question to you guys is, does a shooting like this defer you or push you back from not speaking up? It'll put a target on from whichever side it is,
yeah,
right?
dude, for sure. Because yeah, I mean, we say our opinion here on this podcast, and I, of course, I'd be scared that like somebody that doesn't agree with me is like I hate that
right?
guy when I
Yeah.
kill him. It's like, shit, that's not a good that's not a good place to live in. We
Yeah.
should be able to
And
express our opinions, and that's why I keep saying that. Like, yeah, the shooting is not. That's not the way to go about this.
yeah. So connecting to what you said earlier about me of me being outspoken and like maybe arguing with someone on the street whose politics I don't believe in, that was a younger me.
Hmm.
Now, given the state of this country, I would rather just like, whatever I tell this individual is not going to change his mind really. So I'll just keep quiet and keep walking.
So from the
Unless
political violence.
yeah, yeah, unless I know there's like some chance of someone actually listening to me, like what's happening now, Hoser. You and I probably don't agree with a lot of things, but I'm able to
Yeah.
listen to you and at least
Yeah.
try to understand you,
Mm-hmm.
just like you're able to listen to me and
Yeah.
maybe consider my perspectives. And this
Mm-hmm.
this is helpful. But
Yeah.
talking to some rando on the street and getting into an argument, nah.
Yeah. No, yeah, like for example, like I've been the algorithm, right? I've been seeing videos of like preachers going out to the streets and talking about God, and and people listen to them, but then there's others who they just want to go after them, and I'm like, man, that's dangerous, dude. Like you know, sure, sometimes they put themselves in certain situations where I'm like, dude, really? Like going to LGBT parade, I'm like, you're gonna get that, right? So don't act like, why are you coming at me? And like, dude, you're gonna get that. But other times they're just like on the street, like, hey guys, I just want to tell you this, and boom, they get hit, like they hit them. And so I don't know. I think that it's scary that we can't do that. Which is why I think this event really shocked me, because I'm like, oh dang. So that means that if I go out there and decide to tell people about Jesus, for example, I'm not saying this is what he did. Like, this is outside of Charlie Kirk, but I'm saying, so if I go out there and speak about Jesus, and if someone doesn't like my message, but they know how to shoot, they may not think twice and say, and pull out the gun and say, hey, you better back away from your hateful comments.
No, 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 no. I think if you were Muslim and if you start talking about the Quran, I think that's more of a chance because we live in a Christian majority country. And I think that's another point that hasn't been mentioned is how anti-Muslim this guy was, right? He wasn't
Yeah.
religiously tolerant. He was fiercely, probably like racist anti-Muslim.
Do you think he was anti-Muslim or just racist to the
Oh, no, no, he
third
was
degree?
racist to the core.
But still, that doesn't mean that you silence your critics. Because today is Charlie, tomorrow is some
Yeah.
left wing.
And honestly, when this happened, like it made me think about you guys. Like if it's like Edgar was saying, like if someone hears us and we're outside, we're like, yeah, we're talking about this, is this.
Yeah, dude. As the podcast gets bigger, I started scrubbing because the very first pilot episode had our names on it. I was like, oh shit, dude, I want to make sure that like get rid of that because people are crazy today, man. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe they don't
Yeah.
kill you, but they'll harass you. They'll like
So
it's scary.
yeah. So yeah, dude. So my prayers for Charlie Kirk's family. But as for like between from you guys and with the audience, like don't get it twisted. Like that, I didn't like that guy's stances on a lot of the things. The only thing I agree with him is about Jesus. If is what his behavior is his behavior the same as what Jesus was? I don't think so. No, I mean you know, but then again, I can't judge him. For all I know, God was already doing a change. And actually, side note, I was watching this other video where he was starting to talk about the conspiracy theories, right? There's always a conspiracy theories. And so they were starting to say how he was starting to question now the state of Israel. And so they're like, and this was like very recent, like a month or two. And then this happened.
He was
then
also
he died.
questioning the Epstein files,
And the
like
Epstein
pressing
files.
on that. So I mean, you're right. Like this was pretty eye opening. I could see how he could be appealing to some people. Some people get a different version of him.
Mhm.
I agree with him on some things. I'm surprised now. So
On
um
what?
Epstein files, the Second Amendment. I could see how he could be appealing to other people in religion, creating
Hey,
purpose and stuff like that.
so, all right, this was a nice conversation, really good, really eye opening. So, again, thank you guys for joining me this morning, and I hope this can I hope this can continue in other podcasts, like not just about him, Charlie Kirk, but just about the topics and the ideas, especially with Christianity, right? I think that's gonna be my next just throw it into the grill, see what happens. All right, guys, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys later. Peace.
Yep.